I keep telling young people, like, you need to read as many books as you can get your hands on and read books that interest you. I read tons of books about entrepreneurship. I listened to podcasts about startups that helped me figure things out. But probably one of the most important lessons that I took from all of it was stay with what you know. If you have a vision for the company, stay close to that. Staying true to that has helped us become experts in this field.
Hi, welcome to the Beyond Product Podcast, where we explore the value created with technical products. I'm Moshe Mikonovsky, your host, and with me today, co-hosting the show, is Srivasan from Rootquotient. Today, we're welcoming to the show Poseidon Retsinas. He is the founder of HedgeLegal, which is a law firm that finds new and innovative ways of serving their clients through technology. Welcome to the show, Poseidon.
Thank you, Moshe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So tell us who you are.
So that's a loaded question. Where should we start from? I guess if we want to take it from the top. So I'm currently an entrepreneur. I'm a father, and I'm a lawyer. How did my life begin? So I was born of two Greek immigrants to Canada, born here in Montreal. I've lived in Montreal most of my life, did my studies here, with the exception of going to the London School of Economics, where I branched out into some different fields of law. I think for the purposes of speaking about where HedgeLegal is today, where I am, what's happening with our company, probably the turning points in my life were there was a very big disappointment for me early on when I started the practice of law. Before becoming a lawyer, we need to do an articling period, or a stage, as it's known in Quebec. My stage was at a very good firm. I can't take anything away from them, but I think things didn't quite go the way I wanted to when I was there. I wasn't kept on after my stage, probably owing to some immaturity on my part, or maybe I didn't know what was involved for the practice. But it was a really sobering experience for me, because it was probably one of the biggest failures I'd ever had in my life. Having gone to good schools, getting into law at McGill. And being in some ways an overachiever or an achiever, to not get that was kind of painful. But it was a good experience. I learned from it. I think I came out of that failure much better. So I kind of assessed, what happened. And fortunately, when I didn't get that offer, I got an offer to go work at Clifford Chance in London, which is one of the largest law firms in the world, to work in their derivatives practice. So as they often say, something bad happens, but then it's without that bad thing happening, I wouldn't have had this other amazing opportunity. I went back to London because I had done a master's degree there at the LSE beforehand, but I went back to London to work in this area of law, which I didn't know much about other than studying it a little bit. Derivatives is a fairly specialized field in the practice of law and in finance, but it was an amazing experience. I learned a great deal. I had amazing mentors there, people that I worked with early on. And I stayed in London for about 3 years. And then I moved back to Canada, moved back to Montreal for a number of reasons. But my wife was here. We were engaged. So I wanted to come back. But my family was here. But more so, I love Canada. I've always loved living in Canada. And there was living in the UK and in London is fantastic. But I think we're really fortunate to be here. So I came back. And I was lucky when I came back. I found a job in the same field. And I worked at a firm called Innocap, which is in Montreal and a leader really in the part of hedge fund world. And I won't get too specific about what they do, but what they do, they're a world leader in what they do in the hedge fund space. And I worked there for about 9 years, and I learned a tremendous amount, and I had wonderful people working with me that I was able to learn from. And I suppose I got to a point in my career where there were several options for me. I could stay at Innocap, and it was a great option. Or I could try to go work at another law firm, or, there was something within me that I wanted to do something different. I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur, being raised by an entrepreneur. My father was a restaurateur, as many Greeks were and still are at the time. But he taught me a lot about being an entrepreneur, about running business, how to provide clients with satisfaction, or he was a master at that. Long story short, I'd kind of reached a point in my career at Innocap where there was not so much more that I could do within that organization. But I looked around and I saw that there were other companies doing things similar to what HedgeLegal does now. And I thought that at least I, or the eventual firm which we are now, we could do the same thing, and we could maybe do it better. And that as soon as I got that bug, I think, Sri, you've had this, the entrepreneur's bug.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about it. my mind started racing at 100 miles a minute, and I kept on thinking about different ideas, how we could do things, what we could call the company, what the company would do, how we would pitch our clients, how would we provide the service, how would we charge for the service. All of these things started racing in my head. And the more I started thinking about it and studying competition, the competition at the time, it started to become clear to me how this could actually happen and how it could be possible. So I made the leap. I left Innocap, and at the time that I left, I didn't have any clients. I hadn't started the discussions to get clients, but I figured that if I knew a lot of people in the industry, and if I was able to leverage that and get a few clients, it would be enough to make a living. And I was also fortunate. So Innocap actually became my first client. So they helped me along this transition. And then since then, there's been incremental gains or situations where there have been new clients that have come in, and it's not really a linear progression. It's been like nothing changes for a while, and then something really big happens. On my 40th birthday, this is, and now I'm going to tell my age a little bit, but on my 40th birthday, it was one of those days where I received 2 calls from 2 different clients that were new, and one of them really kind of came out of the blue, and they've turned out to be one of the most important client relationships that we have. So there were these moments of luck, but there was also a lot of planning, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and really connecting with a lot of people, trying to continue to refine the service that we provide. Lots of people helped me along the way, friends, acquaintances that brought up my name in important conversations, which made introductions. But always at the core of it, every client that we touch, every client that we work with, we want to make sure that they get exactly what they've asked for. Exactly, we solve the problem for them, and we do it better than what they're expecting. We're always trying to shoot above expectation. If you shoot for expectation, you'll probably end up a little bit under it. But if you try and shoot above, you should usually get to expectation. And we treat every client, no matter how big or how small, we try to give them the exact same level of service. And so that's an important part of the work.
So it's interesting that you moved from Canada to London because you felt like a failure or something.
Well, I mean, I got an opportunity to work at one of the world's largest law firms. So it was, and I had just been rejected from another law firm. And that put me on this path of working with hedge funds, working in finance, which is really, so what we do now. So what does HedgeLegal do now? We're a law firm. We're a boutique law firm. Boutique meaning we're a small law firm. We're not one of these large, hundreds of lawyers. We're a team of 8 and growing. We've been in operation for 4 years. And our practice centers around the negotiation of contracts, a certain suite of contracts that are used by hedge funds and banks to finance. So hedge funds use it to finance their business, to trade. I'll give you a very simple example. If you wanted to buy stocks, you could go to a bank and open up a brokerage account. As an individual, you don't have any ability to negotiate that arrangement with their bank. Bank will extend you a brokerage contract. And under that contract, there's going to be a number of terms in there that are, again, if you're a retail person, if you're just an individual, you can't negotiate these terms. And the banks will essentially give themselves a lot of discretion as to how to treat your account. If they extend any financing to you, they can recall it at any time. If they feel like they need to, they can liquidate your positions. They
protect themselves. They basically protect themselves.
Protect themselves. When the bank is facing off with a larger entity like a hedge fund, and the hedge fund is coming to the table with several hundred million or several billion, in dollars in assets, and is wanting to finance large amounts, the conversation becomes very different. And then we will work to protect our clients to make sure that the bank cannot do some of the things that I just mentioned, or if it does do it, it has to be in certain very understood situations, which actually makes sense. If the fund is not making payments and let's say there's been a certain period of time that's passed or elapsed, or it's not due to some type of administrative error, then the bank can proceed to liquidating assets. For instance, let's use that as an example, as opposed to having broad rights to do it at any time. So this is that's a minor snapshot of some of the terms, but that's essentially what we do. We negotiate these arrangements for hedge funds. We also represent the banks at times, although most of our clients are hedge funds, but we do represent banks as well. So that's, without getting too detailed into what the technical side of the work is, we negotiate contracts. Our clients, some of them have many contracts, and where the technology comes into it is above and beyond trying to do the negotiation work and providing the client with really great, understanding of what the risks are, what do you do after the contract's signed? And this is the crux of a very large piece of legal tech, which is going on right now. What do you do with the contract after it's signed? Where is it stored? How do we know what's in the contract without somebody needing to go into it and read it, or without putting that stuff in an Excel file, which is also done? Contract management, contract storage platforms, that's existed for a long time. What we did, and what I think is different about our platform, is that it's uniquely tailored towards our clients' needs. It's tailored towards hedge funds. It's tailored towards the terms and the types of agreements that they have. So a lot of the thinking that needs to go into how do you, what are the important data points that you need to draw out of the contract? That's the toughest part, really. How do you build the right data model to know what's important? And more so, once we've identified what's important, how do we feed that into a machine so that it's usable and it can be compared and scaled across many different agreements?
Entrepreneurship is a lot about high tech and a lot about software and products that we're building in software and stuff like that. So to hear, a lawyer calling himself entrepreneur, that's awesome to me. And then on top of that, the way you were talking, I already see how your mind is thinking forward and about, these are all these things that I'm trying to do, and I need to solve that other people may not be solving, or I need to automate some of those processes to make my life easier or the life of my clients easier, or to give them a better service or whatever it is. So I see already, some of the answers to the questions I was about to ask you. But the idea there is that you have that mindset to create more than just the status quo of what a lawyer in this industry is doing, which is awesome. So that's about HedgeLegal a bit and about yourself, and I understand why it's a boutique boutique firm, because you do want to give this special service and create this additional value that you're creating, and it's probably very hard to do if you have lots and lots and lots of lawyers. You can do it,
yes,
at least you start small, and then who knows where you will get in the future, right?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's one of the things that I read. I read a ton of books before starting my company. So anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur and wants to start a company, I keep telling young people, like, you need to read as many books as you can get your hands on, and read books that interest you. But I read tons of books about entrepreneurship. I listened to podcasts about startups. So that helped me figure things out. But probably one of the most important lessons that I took from all of it was, especially early on, was stay with what you know. If you have a vision for the company, you want to sell a certain product, a service, stay close to that. Because early on, I got many inbound requests. Oh, can you help me with this other property issue? I know you're a lawyer, and I could have done the work. Or even things that are very closely related to hedge funds. Like I will still routinely tell clients, if they ask me a question about something that I'm not the expert in, I will tell them, listen, I could figure this out. I could give you advice, but you're better off going to the lawyers that are specialized in this area, because they'll do better work for you. And so that's kind of staying true to that has helped us become experts in this field and really drill more into specific needs that clients have in this area, where they know if they turn to us, we are, and I like to think we're the best, or we're amongst the best within this field, and we can do it really well, as opposed to doing a lot of things kind of mediocre. Stay close to that. I want the firm to stay close to that vision. Or if we do branch out into other areas, we need to make sure that whoever is handling that is an expert in that area as well.
Right.
So
it's a great lesson to entrepreneurs and founders and product managers as well out there. So let's talk a little bit more generically about, the theme of our podcast is about value, creating value with products, with technology products. How do you define value, and how do you define value in technology product?
Helping the client achieve their goals as efficiently as possible. So there's many ways that they can reach the solution, but can we get them there faster in a more cost-effective way? So if we can do that, we're providing value. We're always looking for ways to save them time and energy, especially if you're targeting a higher end niche of clientele. the clients typically have enough money. They have money to pay you for your services, but what they need you to do is save them time, because time is the most precious commodity that anybody has. So if we can get them to the right place quicker and with a less cost of what it would cost them to do it otherwise, either internally or using other firms, they will always be loyal to you. They will always come back to you because they kind of can't beat that. So that's how I would define value overall. Now with tech is trickier because technology at the face of it, as a user, as an end user, which I'm not a technical person, when it comes to IT software development. But I think I consider myself to be a good user of technology, and I use a lot of different pieces of tech. But as a user, it's very easy to see the surface, the beautiful veneer, and think, oh yeah, but when you start digging into the layers of what goes on behind that, it's extremely challenging to produce any product that's going to really provide value. And again, so the value in tech is figuring out what at least from my perspective, is what is the workflow? What are the steps that this person is trying to achieve? What is their end objective? And now how can we wrap the technology around that so that it happens quicker and easier for them again? And that they have this feeling that things can be automated, or things are automated, so that it happens, so that the service is provided better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe you can tell us a bit about what type of technology that you, as part of your solution, because you are providing a service at the end of the day, and the service you cannot replace by technology for sure. There is never going to be an AI bot that is going to do what you're doing. I can put my money on that. And but not talking about AI at all, but talking about what technology is it that you're using to help you as part of your strategy to give that value to your client.
The core of our tech stack is that it's a contract storage platform and a contract analytics. So whatever contracts are stored there, the key clauses, the key provisions of those contracts are pulled out, and clients can easily see visualize what's in these contracts. How do they differ from other ones? We can even add tags like, certain terms that are potentially dangerous to them, where they would want to see those flags showing up. So those are some of the things that it does. There's also a workflow element to it, which is during a new fund launch, we can track the process of the different negotiations with the different banks, for instance. Although I'd call that's a little bit less of a critical component. The most important part really is our clients have 500-600 agreements. Right now, they're stored in Windows folders, subfolders, and maybe they have an Excel file that says, okay, these are the important clauses. And let me give you some example of important clauses, just so that it's for the listener. Like what are people going to want to know about? I'll use an example that's like a real estate thing, because I think people can relate to it more. Let's say you're a landlord and you have 300 tenants, and you have 300 PDFs with 300 contracts. Those contracts every year, they're going to come to renewal, maybe at the same dates, around the same dates. You're going to need to know what's the amount of the rent. What are some of the inclusions, exclusions with respect to, what's covered by the lease. So this type of information, it's either stored in your brain as the landlord or within your lawyer's brains. And if you need it, you ask them, hey, what's the deal with this tenant's lease? And if it's simple leases, it's easy. But what if it's complex commercial leases with multiple, affiliates and different types of structures, and maybe even in different countries that has different legal concerns? So you can start layering in all of these additional items. But I think the point is when you have a large mass of contracts, there will be a certain number of important issues that you want to know what's in them. And you also want to be able to compare them. So that's essentially what our system does. Now, our data points, we have about 100 to 150 data points per agreement type. And there's probably about 20 different agreement types that our clients will typically work with. But for a typical client, they might have 500 agreements, and then you multiply that by the number of points. So you're talking like 50,000 data points.
I can imagine how a computer can help you with that.
Exactly. And he talked about saving time for his clientele. And I think that's exactly what the program is trying to do, extracting those key terms and keeping it in a place for them to review.
Yes.
So what are some of the feedback you've got from the
I'll get to that. But I would just want to throw in, because Rootquotient and Sri, you guys were key, obviously the key partners to us in getting this done. So the contract, the software development phase, Sri, we worked a lot together at the initial conception and the design. That was fundamental. And then obviously developing the product, which had a few twists and turns through the dev phase where we made additional changes. And one other feature that I think that you guys helped us put in place is we can visualize the contracts through the platform, and all of the key clauses are tagged. They're earmarked within the documents. So if somebody's concerned about a certain term, they can actually get to that part of the contract really quickly, which is maybe a little bit more of a lawyer concern. But a lot of our users are lawyers. Most of them are lawyers. So they'll want to be able, instead of just knowing what's in the contract, they're also going to want to be able to get to the spot quickly. So the feedback that we've been getting is people really like the UI. They like the user interface. They find it's very intuitive. They like the overall the data build and how the agreements are modeled so that they can find what's important. So that's some of the initial feedback we've been getting. Our user base is not that massive. It's mostly our core clients that are using this, and I'm not sure if it will become something that's going to be more widespread, or if we're going to keep it more towards the inner circle of large important clients. Because the more we bring in other people, clients will have certain requests about, I'd like to see something done a little bit differently. So we'll customize it. We will customize it for them if it's a reasonable ask and we can achieve it reasonably, and if it's additive to the platform, if it actually makes the platform better overall, which is always a positive. But if we start expanding, and I've had discussions with other let's call it non-clients that wanted to maybe use the system, and they start asking for a lot of changes, and I guess to be very blunt, sometimes it's not worth it. It's not worth it for us to make the changes, to build something for them, or to customize it, because they're not willing to pay the cost of what the value is that's being provided. Let's remember, it always comes back to the value. Like, you can build an amazing platform, but if it's not solving a problem that's worth X amount of dollars to solve, so that they're not going to want to pay for it. When we wrap it within our traditional existing legal services, in some ways, the clients are subsidizing the technology cost because they are sending us more legal work, which humans are still doing. And so the humans can do the work and we get more work from them. But using the tech alongside that, the work that our people can do, that I can do, is enhanced. Mm-hmm. And the client is also left with something that is there that they can use when they need it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the feedback and a little bit how it's being used now.
That's amazing. Thank you for that overview. And I think that it does touch specifically to the value that you mentioned before. How do you measure that value? So how do you know that, yes, I created value and this helped me, this helped my clients, etc.?
That's a tough question. How do you measure it? I mean,
this is the pinnacle of our podcast usually.
How do we measure it? I mean, it's very subjective. There's no objective measure for that, really, other than, do our clients like it? Are we getting positive feedback from them? Are they using it? Is it helping them solve problems in their day-to-day? Is it solving problems for us in our day-to-day? Are we using it? Does this make us better lawyers so that we can give better service to those clients because we have better access to the information? Because a lot of times they may ask us, can you let us know what's in these agreements? And then instead of myself or one of the other attorneys here opening up 20 PDFs, we'll look through the platform and we'll look at what information has been extracted there and what's there. So that's kind of how I'm measuring it right now. Although there's different indicators, but I think that's kind of the main thing right now is it being used? Are clients happy with it? What's the feedback that we're getting? I recommend this to any entrepreneur. I always ask the client, I try to frequently ask, not always, but what have we done well? What can we do better? And particularly with the product, having shown the product to many people, I would continuously ask them, what do you like about this? What don't you like? What do you think could be improved? Where would you like to see this go?
Okay, so, I'm throwing it back at you. We will ask you those questions about the podcast after.
Okay, yes, perfect.
That's a good one.
No, absolutely. It's gold. It's a gold tip over there, to ask. If you don't ask, you don't know. Yeah. So ask the question and then you can improve on it. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And you guys are, I don't think either of you are lawyers or have worked in this field, but we get routine requests from clients where they'll send us a number of agreements and they'll say, can you figure out what's in here and tell us what's in here? And And some of the clients are on our platform, some may not be on the platform, and they say, can you put this in an Excel file for us, or in some other format that they want to internalize? However they've structured and data modeled it for their own purposes. That's a very time-intensive process. It's not just going to take 2 hours, and lawyers charge hourly rate. And there's also then the time between once we've been instructed, or anybody's been instructed to look through these documents. How long does it take to actually get all the information? Is it going to take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Because all of that time is then preventing the decision makers from actually making the right, an informed decision about what's in there, what are their risks, if certain situations arise.
Yeah. So I can see, actually, from what you're saying, a couple of things in addition, that you can become much more competitive, because you can do maybe things faster or better than your competition because you have the tools. And also, you might be able to scale your company in a much better way. So those could be also some strategic ways that we use technology in order to help us, grow faster or grow better or become better than our competitors.
Yeah, his product can become one of the products for extracting key terms within the HedgeLegal industry. And that would be fantastic. If people wants to just run their documents through the software, they have to become members.
What are you working now on improving in the technology or in the products that help in your service and creating value, or that you are aspiring to build?
What we're working on now, because it's still a fairly new platform, so we're bringing clients into the fold. Where at this point we're manually, so people on the team are inputting the data points, so that and we're refining and improving, let's call it, some of the features. So that's where we're at right now, which is really an implementation stage of the product. And there's a lot that can be done within the current suite. So there's no real necessity to change the product at this point. Where I would like to see the product go is where we start coming into more of the AI or the automation, machine learning type. How much of the platform can be automated now? Because building the platform, the interface, the data models, that requires a lot of human intervention. Now we're implementing, where clients coming to us with 100 agreements. Can you upload them? Can you extract the terms? So each agreement might take 2 hours, 3 hours to go through to implement the important terms. So I've received some requests from clients who they say, I have 5,000 agreements. How long will it take you to implement them? And then I look at it and I look at how many people we have and how many people could remain sane if they're doing that many agreements at once, which is not many. Like, it's definitely not me. It's very challenging. So let's say for that type of a project, it might take 6 months, it might take a year. And that would also require hiring new people if you really want to upload that many agreements. So where I'd like to see it go is more towards automation of this part of the reading the contract, extracting the important terms. Now, again, some contract analytics platforms have achieved that. I think they've achieved it for simpler contracts. So, and even if we were to do it, we would probably start with one or two types of contracts, which are based on a more standard format. So it would be easier for a machine with a large data set to use like machine learning algorithm technology that exists today to predict whether a term is good or bad, and what does that term actually say. The thing is, you need a lot of data. You need you probably need. I'm not a machine learning expert, but you need thousands and thousands of these agreements to be fed in and put it with the model so that the machine can start giving you something that's even workable. So with the current set of tech, I'm kind of faced with the problem, because to build a data set that's good enough for the machine to even do its work, I'm probably years away from that, unless I invest heavily into just trying to build, to get all these samples that, set up for it. And things are not so, it's not so straightforward. Like, as you said, like, will I be replaced as a lawyer within the next 5 or 10 years? Definitely not. Will I be replaced in 300 years? Obviously, I won't be around anymore, but will the machine be capable of doing? I think a lot of people will overestimate the capability of AI right now, just based on if they use ChatGPT and they're like, oh, this is amazing, and it can write a story for me, and it can do amazing. I'm not, generative AI and all this, they can do a lot. Fundamental mismatch between what people think AI is and what AI actually is that AI is not intelligent right now. AI is, there's no general intelligence built into it. It doesn't know what it's doing or why it's doing it. It's just doing something based on parameters that it's been fed. And a lot of times people don't even know why it comes out with that conclusion. So it's the focus on machine learning and even generative AI has been a lot more of like, taking in this information so that you can produce a result out of it, but the machine doesn't really understand what it's doing. And when it comes to law and applying law and contract review and analytics, like we could sit together and we could review a contract and we could focus on one clause for 2 hours and figure out different ways that it could be interpreted or be applied and change 2 words somewhere and then it has a completely different meaning. The machines are not there yet. So, but they will get better. What's that? Go ahead, Sri.
No, thank God they are not there yet. I mean, do you want the machine to negotiate your contract for you? No.
Whatever automated solution they can create, they will need somebody to look through it, or and lawyers to look through it to make sure the data is clean and the data is accurate. So that's maybe that for us, that's probably several years away. As I said, unless the technology will change, but I don't know how quickly it'll improve so that this, I suppose this issue that I have about needing massive data sets is no longer necessary to use, I guess, machine learning or some type of AI. Probably the next place we would go to would be, can we take in some other data where if certain events happen, that'll tie to triggers in the contracts so that if we have this, so we can essentially monitor some eventualities or some triggers in the contracts. That would be another nice additive bonus because there's certain, like the contracts are tied to real life events. Some of those real life events, the data for those events exists. Can we draw the data in, link it to the terms so that we can have the flags popping when there's a potential issue or if there is an issue?
Yeah. From a product management perspective, I can tell you I love how you talk because I see that you know the problems. You're very in tune with what job to be done. We call it jobs to be done that you have. What is the thing I'm trying to actually achieve here? And from that, you can come up with those brilliant ideas on how to automate them or improve them. And not everything needs to be an AI. AI, at the end of the day, it's an algorithm as well. It's just a very different algorithm than a regular algorithm. It's statistical. It just creates, directional ideas or give you scores or things like that you can make a decision or not. Or you can let it make the decisions, but do you trust it enough to make those decisions, right? So I think that you're right, that it will be probably a very long time until we see that happening. And I'm actually very grateful for that. My daughter is going to law school now.
Okay.
And I'm grateful to the fact that I think she will still have a job. So that's good as well.
I think what it's done, or the automation has done, is it's taken the focus away, or it's from the mundane tasks, the very simple data processing jobs. A lot of them have been automated across many industries. And I think that's been a massive productivity gain because now people can focus on more complicated issues. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. Like the more AI we get.
What I'm worried though is that they might forget how to do the simple things. And if they cannot do the simple thing, can they really do the complex things? So we can debate about that, right?
We can, but it's, anyway, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but it's like, I don't need to know how my car works in order to be a good driver. So
I think everybody is jumping onto this boat of AI and boarding this train without knowing where it is heading. So I think having a clear vision for where the AI can play a role within my product, I think it's one of the things that I've learned from you today. It was a fantastic conversation with you.
Thank you guys for having me. I want to just leave it on that point, Sri. Every day we should aim to do better in multiple facets of our life, and I think that's a value that I hold very dear to me, and I don't want to lose sight of it. As long as we keep trying to get better for the work that we do day in, day out. As a business, we'll always be viable. You will never go out of business if you keep trying to improve. You go out of business when you rest on your laurels, as they say, and you think, things are good enough. And then that's when things go wrong. So as an entrepreneur, I think like you need to stay hungry, and you need to keep working at it and trying to keep getting better. You're either moving up. There's no stable. You're either getting better or you're deteriorating. So
amen to that. Amen.
That's a great message for everyone. Thank you so much, Poseidon. Just one last thing. Where can people reach out to you if they want to continue the talk with you?
HedgeLegal.com, our website. I'm up there with my details. Also, Poseidon.Retsinas at HedgeLegal.com is my email. I'm also on LinkedIn. They can find me pretty easily. It helps when you have a name like Poseidon. People can usually find you.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much, Poseidon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sri, for helping me with the podcast. And until next time, this is Moshe and Sri with the Beyond Product for Value Creation podcast. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Stay happy.